What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into the NFL Week 14 recap. Fresh and hot for you. The Chiefs continue their magical ride of luckiness. They doink it in for the division title 11th straight year. We'll jump into that. Bills and Rams give us a candidate for the game of the year. Probably game of the past 2 years. Quite a fun fest in LA for that one. Of course, we'll talk about it. And then just around the league, Steelers continue to stack W's. The Panthers have shown that they're not an easy out. So we'll dive into everything. Like and subscribe. Comment down below. Did your favorite team win? Hopefully they did. I know half of you, they lost. So without further ado, let's go do it. Chiefs, Chargers, Sunday Night Football. Chiefs pull it off 19-17. And in classic Kansas City fashion, third down. They're about on the edge of red zone, and the Chargers have a chance to get the ball back with a minute left. They wouldn't have any timeouts, but that's enough time to go get a field goal. And the linebacker for the Chargers, with a full head of steam, has Patrick Mahomes dead to rights. And Mahomes jukes him. The guy whiffs, and he finds Travis Kelce for a first down. They run the clock out. Chip shot field goal, except it hits off the crossbar, but why would we expect it to fall out? It goes in through the uprights. They win. Division title, 11th straight year. Chiefs are headed to the playoffs, and it looks like they're going to be wrapping up that number 1 seed as the Bills lost today, and we'll get into that loss in a little bit. It was a great game. Valiant effort by Buffalo, but this one stings for really everybody in the AFC. And how many times have we seen it this year, man? The Chiefs just find a way to get things done. As much as Chiefs fans will say, "Oh, we're good, man. We're finding ways to win these games." Like, yo, y'all have been insanely lucky. Like, I was a Patriots fan my whole life, still am, die hard. I ain't never seen anything like this. And you definitely need luck to fall on your side. But the extent that it has this season, I mean, it's quite impressive. So Chargers just can't do it. They can't get it done. And every team seems to do the same thing where they leave too much time on the clock and they don't get them done on third down. You know, Patrick Mahomes has not been really that good of a quarterback this year, and people will hate. And they'll think, well, he's won 2 MVPs and 3 Super Bowls. Okay, yeah, this is 2024. He hasn't been that good. Now, where he's been very good is on third downs and converting those, which is, I would say, over half the battle when it comes to winning games. Red zone and third downs, offense and defense. You know, you could give up 9 yards on the first 2 downs on defense, but if you stop them on that final yard on third down, they got to punt. And vice versa on offense, you could get 1 yard on first and second down, but if you get 10 on third down, it's another first down, and you keep the drive moving. And that's really just what they've been able to do, and just put up enough points and their defense clamps down. You feel like it's got to run out at some point. I mean, the wins this year, Ravens by a toe, Bengals by, a millisecond. Falcons, missed calls. Bucks, win the flip in overtime. Broncos, blocked kick. Panthers, game-winning kick. Raiders, botched snap. And then tonight, the doink in. You know, sometimes luck runs out. I watched the Patriots some of the years where, they put up a good record. They just didn't have that good of a team, and that's fine to admit that. You're not going to win it every year, but as of right now, you have been winning, so that's all that ultimately matters. You do wonder what team is just going to say, we've had enough, and go in there and kick the doors off of them. This team just does not have the potential to keep up, to me, with a Lions, even a Packers, and some of these AFC teams that they've been skating by. I think they got the Ravens on the right day. Chargers, even though they're 8-5, this is an incredible coaching effort. They don't have much on that squad. They got some aging guys on defense, but on offense, they lose J.K. Dobbins. That hurts a lot. Justin Herbert's clearly playing with what it seems like basically 1 foot. He's banged up. And then receiver-wise, they're out without Ladd McConkey tonight. Their leading receiver, Quentin Johnston, hell of a game, making tough catches over the middle, had a score, had a couple rough games back-to-back, but bounced back tonight. Good to see that out of him. Josh Palmer had some nice plays, but ultimately they don't have a lot on offense. They have a great offensive line. And to me, the Chargers' number one priority going into this offseason, how can we trade up to get Ashton Genty? I mean, that is a match made in heaven. As much as people mock him to the Cowboys, I did so myself. Not so much that the Chargers shouldn't get him, it's that the Cowboys are in a better spot. The Bengals would be another team. But what does Jim Harbaugh want to do? He wants to run the damn football down your throat, make you go home with sore knees, a sore back, and a pissed off attitude because you just got beat up for 60 straight minutes. Ashton Genty would fall perfectly into that category. I mean, think about Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, what they did with Jim Harbaugh last year at Michigan to win the Natty. I mean, you basically put those two players together and you get Ashton Genty. Shifty, fast, powerful, smart, can pass protect. I mean, what more could you want if you're Jim Harbaugh? So I expect them to figure out how to get him. And then all of a sudden, maybe you spend a second-round pick on somebody who can stretch the field. You know, an Isaiah Bond or a Marquise Brown who's going to be a free agent. And then all of a sudden your offense is looking pretty good. Colston Loveland in the second round, Michigan tight end. He's probably going to fall into day 2. So maybe they can snag him. Defensively, you could probably use another corner. Maybe some linebacker depth, but overall, your safeties, Derwin James, Elijah Molden. I think they had another guy like Trey Dye or something like that who's having an incredible season. So you have some pieces and you're incredibly well coached. Just think you're a year off. 8-5 though. I mean, you're going to make the playoffs and that's sweet. And both the games you played against the Chiefs were 1-score games. Just shows you don't have enough to keep up with them right now, even though their offense is pretty brutal to watch, and I don't know why. You have Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelce, DeAndre Hopkins, Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco. Noah Gray has shown that he's pretty good. Juju Smith-Schuster. It's not like you got the Patriots or even the Chargers skill positions. You got some players there, but people keep mounting the excuses saying, well, they don't have weapons. Like, yeah, they do. They have the fastest guy in the combine history. They have 2 solid options over the middle with Juju and Travis Kelce. And then, like I said, DeAndre Hopkins is going to catch the ball 70 times out of 100 when it's contested. And then you got a pretty good running back duo and a decent interior offensive line. The struggle is at tackle. I will say, man, I think most of the struggle that the Chiefs have had on offense is that their tackles, it is a turnstile. You could put me out there on 3rd down, and I'm going to find a way to get to Patrick Mahomes, Wanya Morris, DJ Humphries, Jawan Taylor, which is looking like one of the worst free agent signings from a couple years ago. Kinsley Suamatia, their rookie that they drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round, he has been terrible. It's kind of reminiscent of when they played the Bucs in the Super Bowl in 2020. Patrick Mahomes had 0 times. They had way better weapons, but now you're just, when the play breaks down, there's not that explosiveness with Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill. So, offensive line is the biggest question mark heading in to the postseason for the Chiefs. Next up, we got the Bills and the Rams. And man, this game was entertaining. Plain and simple. This is what the NFL hopes happens when they put a game in the America Game of the Week slot with Tom Brady and Kevin Burkhardt calling it. 425. Everybody watching. They got their money's worth. The Rams win 44-42. And for a point there in the 3rd quarter, felt like the Rams were running away with this thing. 31-14. Puka Nacua just out of his gourd. 12 catches, 141 yards, rushing touchdown. I mean, made some catches that, I mean, shit, you could play NFL Street from back in 2007 on PS2. You're not going to see these catches. How did he fall all the way to the 5th round? I'll never know. And I'll forever be heartbroken that the Patriots did not find him in the first 150 picks. That certainly hurts. But he has been, hey, he's a top 5 wide receiver. Let's be just completely honest. I mean, for sure, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. You know, who else do we have out there? I mean, let's go through the teams. Giants, Malik Neighbors, still a little bit young. There's not really a team that rings a bell where you're saying, oh, yeah, he's one of the best receivers in the league. A.J. Brown, you throw him in there. I mean, we got to start talking about Puka Nacua as a top 5 wide receiver. No doubt about it. Any catch thrown his way, it's a first down, what it seems like. And he's been incredible to watch. Rams. I mean, people don't really talk about it a lot because they were known for when Les Snead had that mug that said, fuck them picks. Talking about trading out, you know, first and second rounders for guys like Von Miller and Jalen Ramsey. Just talent to win now. Odell Beckham Jr. But they've done a great job restocking the cabinet. Drafting guys like Kobe Turner, Byron Young, Braden Fisk, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams. I mean, the list goes on. Jared Verse, they got him in the first round. A lot of these guys that they've been going grocery shopping for have been in the later rounds. And they've really built a hell of a team for the future. They got some offensive line DB issues. Matthew Stafford's not getting any younger, but when this team can play, and when they, or this team can play, but when they are on, you know, look out. And they played the Seahawks. Final game of the year, week 18. You got to imagine if that is up for the division, that's going to be the final Sunday night game to kind of end our season heading into the playoffs. Lions and Packers was a couple years ago. They love doing these matchups. 49ers Seahawks a few years back, where winner is in, loser goes home, or if it affects seeding in any way. So I would look out for that. On the other hand, the Bills, this one hurts a lot because you got the tiebreaker with the Chiefs. You just need them to lose another game. They still got to play the Texans. They still got to play the Steelers. And they got to finish the season with the Broncos. I mean, those are 3 tough games. The Broncos really beat them last time up until the final 2 seconds. You had to win this game. And especially in a game where Josh Allen, 6 touchdowns, 3 on the ground, 3 through the air, 300 yards passing. Just an MVP style game. It's solely between him and Saquon Barkley right now. Everybody wants to give it to Josh Allen right away, but I mean, the team's got relatively the same record. The Eagles have another win, and you can contribute that solely to what Saquon Barkley has done this year. So I don't think it's a complete wash that Josh Allen is getting the MVP, but it's certainly between him and Saquon only now after this performance by Josh. I mean, incredible freaking game. And it just sucks you couldn't come away with the dub. Felt like early the Bills were going to have one of these games where they just got thrashed on the first drive on the ground. Blake Corum and Kyron Williams running up the gut like madmen. Sometimes this team has those games where you're like, they seem a mile and a half slower than normal. And their offensive line seems like they're getting to Josh quick and he's not on the same page with his guys. And it felt like one of those games, and it was one of those games up until the fourth quarter when they mounted this crazy comeback, but just fell a little bit short. Moved to 10-3. That's a gut punch right there as the Chiefs move to 12-1 and win the close game that you couldn't. So all you can hope now is you win out, and Chiefs got to lose 2 games. But seems like the road to the Super Bowl is going to be through Arrowhead right now. Now we're going to start with the 1 o'clock games and just move down the slate until we hit them all. Jets and Dolphins. This one went to overtime in an Aaron Rodgers first game throwing for 300 yards since December of 2021. The New York Jets lose They moved to 3-10. They stink. Just a brutal loss. You felt like Aaron Rodgers did everything possible. He did take kind of a bad sack at the end, but then found Devontae Adams on a nice back shoulder pass to get them within field goal range. And then kind of a odd sighting. The New York Jets kicker hit a potential game winner in the fourth quarter. So that was nice for them. But then the Dolphins go right down the field, get a field goal for their own, bring it to overtime. Dolphins win the toss, go right down the field. Jonnu Smith, 0 catches through the first 4 quarters, 3 on that final drive in OT, the winning one as well. Dolphins walk it off, and they keep their playoff hopes alive as they end the Jets. Jets are officially eliminated from playoff contention. Sure, that's not what they wanted to hear in week 14, but it's what they're hearing, and they're 1-7 since firing Robert Saleh. It feels like maybe there's a little bit of, we all really liked Robert Saleh, and you firing him kind of pissed us off, so that sucked. But I think it's more of just he was the best coach on that staff, and that's not saying much. It's not like Robert Saleh was burning the world down with his win-loss record, but the Jets were competitive every week. That defense was legit, and you were doing all that with freaking Zach Wilson, and you thought Aaron Rodgers would be an upgrade. Clearly, it hasn't been. He's just clearly a little bit older, just not as fast, not as accurate. Seems like this is probably his final month in the NFL. I can't imagine he comes back. Definitely not to the Jets, and that just leaves you to, think who's going to trade for Aaron Rodgers, because that's what they'd have to do unless the Jets cut him. But it's not like he's going to Tennessee. It's not like he's going to Carolina, New Orleans, the Raiders. All right. So I guess enjoy it, because this is probably the end of the road for Aaron Rodgers. Soak it up if you can. I'm sure he's excited to just not have to deal with the curse of New York sports, because that's a real thing. Just another tough loss, though. And you feel for this team. Even though I'm a Pats fan, it was funny, then it was enjoyable, then it was comical. Now you just kind of feel bad. So, on the other side of the ball, Miami Dolphins stay alive. They moved to 6-7. They need a little bit of help from the Broncos. Colts to lose a game as well for them to make the playoffs. And if they don't, it really starts to turn up the burner on Mike McDaniel's hot seat. They are notoriously known for not being able to win big games. And that's not just a bias or a hypothesis. Like, that's a legit known fact. They don't win big games. They don't play in cold weather. You thought it might be different. On Thanksgiving, it wasn't. They got the shit kicked out of them. They do come back and win this game in Miami, which is big. But they've made the playoffs a couple years in a row, and they get bounced in the first round. And if they don't even make the playoffs this year, how many coaches do we see have this trajectory? First year, building year, you're competitive, don't make the playoffs. Next year, you make the playoffs, maybe don't win a game, but you at least make it. Next year, make the playoffs again, you don't win a game. Then the conversations start, okay, is he the guy? 2 years in a row in the playoffs, we're not going to fire him. He's doing a good job. Then next year, you don't make the playoffs, but you're around 500. Usually the year after that, you're on the hot seat in the beginning portion of the season. So you got to think if the Dolphins, which, as we've talked before, they got some money that's coming due. They got guys who are aging a little bit. If they start the season off 3-5, 3-6, you got to wonder, is it Mike McDaniel's final year next year in Miami? Because I can't imagine they'd fire him this year. They still are close. But usually the trajectory you want is competitive first year, playoff second year, playoff wins third year, Super Bowl fourth. I mean, that's ideal. Obviously, it doesn't happen all the time. But you're starting to see It was heading up the mountain. Now it's plateaued, then it plateaued, and now we're starting to head back down. That's usually when coaching change happens. So we'll see how that all plays out. Next game, Saints and Giants, and I'll tell you what, this game literally means 0. I don't know if there's ever been a game that meant less than this one. 5-8 Saints after the win, 2-11 Giants after the loss. I mean, we all know for sure that only Saints and Giants fans watched this game, and even if you were a fan of that team, I couldn't blame you for not watching it. It's good to have Kayvon Thibodeau back if you're a Giants fan. He's been back past couple of weeks, but first sack since October 6th, so that's nice. Outside of that, Neighbors, 5 catches, 79 yards. Tyrone Tracy, touchdown on the ground. You know, Derek Carr tried to pull a John Elway, ended up getting hurt. Finished the game, but thought he was what he wasn't. We're moving on. Falcons and Vikings. Now, this game mattered. And these teams played like it for the first half. And then the Vikings said, yeah, well, we're 10-2 and you're 6-6 for a reason. We're going to pull away. Put up 42 points, and Sam Darnold, holy shit, has his best game as a pro, one of the best games of the season. 22 for 28, almost 350 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, no picks. I mean, he was incredible. My girlfriend's sister and her husband were at the game. She was rooting for the Vikings. He was rooting for the Falcons. Hopefully they don't get in any arguments on the ride home. Vikings, man, 11-2. Damn, Sam Darnold just kind of thrusting himself back into the MVP conversation. Not for real, but you get what I'm saying. Just an incredible game, picking up where he was at the beginning of the season. And I'll tell you what, you got to pay the guy at this point, especially if he wins you a playoff game. He had some efficient games throughout the season. You're like, oh yeah, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, a pick. Like, that's pretty good. Do we move on from him? Probably. But now you get a guy 22 for 28, 5 touchdowns, no picks, just big chunks all over the yard. You win a playoff game with this guy. Sorry, JJ. 3-year deal, $140 million. 100 guaranteed. Sam Darnold, that's his contract. Mark my words. He'll be back on Minnesota next year if they win in the playoffs. On the other side of the ball, the quarterback that the Falcons decided to give a shit ton of money to, even though he tore his Achilles halfway through the season and is old. 0 touchdowns, 8 interceptions in his last 4 games. Falcons are 0-4 during that stretch. No shit. They were 6-3, and then all this happened. And now they're 6-7. And the Bucs have rattled off a few straight wins. And the Bucs are now 7-6 and in first place. Listen, you drafted Michael Penix for a reason. You gotta play him. I get trying to stick with the guy that you paid for. But man, you are not out of the playoffs yet, but this quarterback is keeping you out game after game after game. You have the tiebreaker with the Bucs, so all you need to do is tie their record, which shouldn't be difficult. You're only within a game of them, and they have a shit ton of injuries. You got to start Penix. It has to happen. You have so much talent all over your team. Side note, that trade for Judon, 3rd-round pick, thank you. That's aged perfectly for the Patriots, not for the Falcons. Judon has pooed on the Falcons organization. He ain't done nothing, but listen. That's the front office for Atlanta for you. Doesn't seem like they know what they're doing. Hopefully they know what they're doing when they drafted Penix, because they got to put him in. Next up, we got the Panthers and the Eagles. And tell you what, Panthers, last 5 games, all 1-possession games. They almost beat the Chiefs. They almost beat the Eagles today. They had Xavier Legette wide open, and Bryce Young, I wouldn't say he missed him. It's a catch you should make in the NFL. Could it have been a half a foot closer? Yeah. But man, it would have all but won the game. The Eagles would have still had a chance to go get a field goal, but they brought it down to about 30-yard line. Just couldn't convert on 4th down. Bryce Young has been really showing that his nuts are not small like his frame. He's been having a great past 5 weeks since Andy Dalton got in a car accident. Bryce Young has said, well, give me the steering wheel. And he's been leading them to competitive ball games. And so you love to see it if you're a Panthers fan. Your team looks like a team. Eagles, on the other hand, sometimes you're going to have a weird game. You just got to win it. They did. I am worried a little bit about the Eagles on the sense that if they start trailing to a team like the Lions, are we sure that Jalen Hurts can throw them back into it? Because when you watch him, there's multiple third downs where you see they got an in-breaking route, like a short in or a slant, and it's open on 3rd and 5. And if you fire it in there, it's a first down. And it just doesn't seem like he's confident throwing over the middle, and it's never really been his game. But there's a lot of quarterbacks in the league that could stay starting if they would just hit those easy throws and convert the 3rd down and move the chains. That's what Patrick Mahomes has been doing. He hasn't been looking for all these big plays. He tries to get them, like every quarterback should when the time is appropriate. But Brady and Manning, the reason they were so good is because on 3rd and 5, they didn't hold on to the ball. They just rip it and they get 6, and it's a first down. And I just don't see that same efficiency with Jalen Hurts. He hunts the big plays. He wants to throw to the sideline, which is fine. It's just a lower completion percentage to the outside. And if you've got to throw your way back into the game, you're going to have to hit some of those over the middle and stand in the pocket and rip it. Next up, we got the Browns and the Steelers. The George Pickens, I don't know who Martin Emerson, he knows who Martin Emerson is, played on Georgia. But he said he doesn't know who Greg Newsome is. A lot of people know who Greg Newsome is. He's a great corner for the Browns. But they just couldn't do enough to beat the Steelers in this game in Pittsburgh. Steelers get revenge for the snow game, which was one of the best games of the year. Russell keeps cooking. He's just not cooking in the same way. He used to cook in that beautiful, open style kitchen, nice big restaurant, stainless steel everywhere, beautiful murals, gold plating. Now he's cooking on a little single stove in a camper, but the meals are still delicious. He's efficient, leads them to the win again. Just got to keep stacking W's, and that's what they're doing. They're 10-3 now. Just keep moving, keep trudging. George Pickens was injured. We'll have to wait for the update on that. That hurts a little bit. Mike Williams had a couple nice catches. Just keep stacking dubs. On the other side of the ball, the Browns, really the main thing to talk about here, the Jerry Jeudy breakout continues. Was very perplexed earlier in this year when they decided to extend him 3 years, $76 million. Was like, what the fuck are you doing? He's been trash, but he always had the potential. Out of Alabama, one of the best route runners we've ever seen coming out of college. Well, this year, especially over the past few weeks, he goes for damn near 300 yards last week against the Broncos. Has another nice game with a touchdown today. His ascension has just continued, and it makes that Amari Cooper trade way more palatable. Now you add in David Njoku, Nick Chubb, which curious to see what they do with his contract coming up. But Jerry Jeudy, you got Cedric Tillman, Elijah Moore. You got some pieces there. The offensive line getting a little older, but enough to maybe bridge next season, build your team, go for a rookie QB in the year after with guys like Nico Iamaleava coming out. Possibly Arch Manning. I'm sure he'll stay for his senior year, but you just never know. There's some quarterbacks that are looking enticing in the Browns' future because Watson, I can't expect that we're going to see him playing much next year. Final 1 o'clock. Nope, not the final 1 o'clock game. One of the final ones. Raiders and the Bucks. Like I said, the Bucks win this game 28-13. Bucky Irving does go down earlier in the game, but that does not halt the Bucks offense. The Raiders fall to 2-11. They're clearly, I would say, the worst team in the league. The Jags have some pieces that you feel decent about. But right now, Raiders and Giants, they're playing for first overall pick. And I think the Giants are going, or excuse me, I think the Raiders are going to be the ones to get it. This team is just so bad. And it's weird because it can have moments. Aiden O'Connell sometimes has games, but just you feel like this core dysfunctionality with that organization. They have always a couple really good players, and they just can't figure it out. 2-11. It's a tough watch. It really is. On the Bucs side, you're in full control of your destiny now. You win out, you're in. You play the Chargers, which will probably be your toughest game. And when I say probably, I mean definitely. Because after that, you finish the season with the Cowboys, the Panthers, and the Saints. I mean, any one of these 12 playoff teams in college could roll out and beat those guys. So, you just got to finish out the season strong. You had that crazy middle of the schedule like Niners, Chiefs, Ravens. You had some really tough games in there. And you struggled, especially with being injured, because on defense, you got 5 starters and like 5 good starters that are out. So hopefully you can get a little healthier. And that's going to be the key. If they can get healthy for the playoffs, because when this team is healthy, I really think they can make a little bit of a run. Like, they've been feisty with all these great teams being injured. So if they can get healthy, they do have the question mark for Chris Godwin coming up this offseason. I can imagine that he'll be back as a Buck, maybe on a 1-year deal, kind of prove it, show you're healthy. He's got the mentality to work hard, get back. But you're starting to see some pieces on that offense with Jalen McMillan. Sterling Shepard has looked nice. Cade Otton has really come on as one of the better tight ends in the league. And then even though Bucky Irving got hurt, he's been having a great rookie year. And Baker's been playing best football of his career. I like this Bucs team. I think that they could win a playoff game for sure. Now we got the final 1 o'clock game. Jags and Titans. And when I said that Saints and Giants game meant nothing, I found a game that meant nothing more. Only bright spot for these two teams playing in it is you get a little bit of bragging rights in the division for, you're the worst. No, you're the worst. No, you're the worst. Jags win this game, so Titans, you're the worst. 10-6. I could take a shit with flamed hemorrhoids, and I would have had more of an enjoyable time than watching that game. Feel bad for all the fans that paid money to go to it, but you probably didn't pay much. Mac Jones and his opportunities, since he's become the starter in Jacksonville, you thought, you know what? Maybe he could do something. And he has moments, but he's starting to lose an opportunity to stay as a second stringer. I do think he's one of the best 64 quarterbacks in the league, so you imagine he'll get sometime somewhere. But 2 touchdowns, 5 picks, in 3 games started. 1 and 2, they get the win today. Titans, we say it every week. You're just playing for the future. Will Levis didn't turn the ball over today, so that's a plus. You would assume when you see that the Titans only put up 6 points that he probably threw 3 picks, but he didn't. So that's a bright spot. I think you ride it out with him another year. 4 o'clock games, Seahawks and Cardinals. And man, Seahawks, 4-game winning streak. And this game kind of encapsulates where these two franchises are currently. A few weeks back, felt like the Seahawks, bottom of the NFC West. They're not really going to be doing anything. Is this the year that they just finally have a chance to get a quarterback? They've been 9-8 the past few years. They're on a slide. Mike McDonald's first year, they've been really banged up. Seems like this might be a transition year. Cardinals, on the other hand, they were 6-4. And they put a couple really gritty wins together, and you're feeling good about them. You're like, man, they've been competitive with some good teams, even if they didn't win. And you're like, all right. Like, maybe this team isn't as far off as we thought, even though they're a little bit of devoid of talent. Kyler Murray been playing good. Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, James Conner. You're like, this offense is pretty exciting to watch. Just shows you how much can change in a month. Cardinals have lost 3 in a row. Seahawks have won 4 in a row. Now Seahawks 8-5. Firmly in control of first place in the NFC West. And there's games where Geno Smith, man, he looks like a top 10 quarterback. He can rip it over the middle. That guy has got elite arm strength. And really, I know people are going to get annoyed about this, but to me, Shedeur Sanders is Geno Smith. But that's not a bad thing if you get the Geno Smith that you see, on some of these primetime games. You're like, holy shit. This guy's insane. Stands tall in the pocket, can make every throw. And then if you play man coverage and you just bail out, he'll beat you for 30 yards on the ground. Then he has some games where you're like, all right, you took 2 sacks on the 5-yard line and then threw a pick to end the drive. Which Geno are you going to get? Geno's been good lately, and I'd like to see him succeed in the playoffs, and looks like they're headed that way. Cardinals, we thought that you were a year away, and you started to change our minds a little bit, but now, some colors just bleed through, and in this case, you are a year away. Final game that we're talking about, we got the Bucks. We just talked about the Bucks. We got the Bears playing the Niners, and they get their shit kicked in 38-13. The Niners get back on track. They say, listen, Seahawks 8-5, Rams beat the Bills. We're not done yet, motherfuckers. We went to the Super Bowl last year. Yeah, you remember us? The team that's been to 3 straight NFC championship games? Don't think we will go quietly into the night. They look good today. They look really, really good today. Brock Purdy, 20 for 25, 328, 5 touchdowns. Or no, 3 touchdowns. Isaac Grendo, rookie running back with his first start. 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. Great job. I was high on him coming into the draft. I was like, yeah, this guy, 6 foot, 220 pounds, runs a 4.3. Sign me up to not have to tackle him. Defensively, the Bear was wounded. Did you put it out of its misery? No. Did you nurse it back to health? No. Caleb Williams didn't turn the ball over, and Rome Odunze that connected for 2 touchdowns, so that's nice. Had a nice catch on the sideline as well. And you see moments that Caleb is, all right. Yeah, we can work with that. He definitely, to me, has been the worst rookie QB out of the 3 that has started the most. Hopefully we'll see Panics coming up here. And or out of the 4 that have started. And that's really that Jaden, Bo, and Drake have played so good. I wouldn't say Caleb's been bad. Maybe a little overwhelmed. There's clearly dysfunctionality in that wide receiver room. I don't think that DJ Moore is going to be back next year. I do think that they find a way to keep Keenan Allen for a year. He's building some chemistry with him. And then you supplement in the draft. But I think DJ Moore is playing for a new team next year. He seems mentally and at times physically checked out. He's just playing for the future at this point. And for the Niners, even though you look good in this game, you really got to look at this with shit-colored glasses instead of rose. You got to trade some guys in the offseason. You got to let Charvarius Ward, Dre Greenlaw, you got to let those guys walk. Look for trades for Deebo Samuel. He hasn't looked the same this year. You just signed Ayuk, so you got to keep him around. But see what teams would entertain for McCaffrey. I don't think that would happen, but maybe Taulua Hufunga, see what you can get for him. Even Fred Warner, I would not, even though you have him through 2026, he's a leader of your defense. I'm not sure I'd move on from him, but if you could get a high second or a late first, be tough to not. This team is in that weird transition where, you could bring some guys back, definitely get rid of some older guys, bring in some youth, beef up that offensive line. You get those guys back that have been banged up this year because they've had a year from hell injury-wise, and they could be right back in the thick of things next year. Brock Purdy's final year before contract, they're not going to extend him this offseason, and they shouldn't. Not saying that he's a bad quarterback, but sometimes we're in such a hurry to pay these guys. Like, hey, he still has a year on his contract. He loves football. He's not going to sit out. Let's see what he's got. Why would you pay Trevor Lawrence 3 years into his career when you're not sure what you're getting? At least when the Eagles paid Jalen Hurts and the Bengals played Joe Burrow. Like, they went to Super Bowls. And for a little bit, we thought the Eagles had a Jalen Hurts problem. And that's kind of corrected itself. But just, don't pay guys earlier than you have to. And I don't think the Niners will. They'll give one more run at it. But I think the right move is to just get younger. Because they look old. But they didn't look old today. Outside of that, guys, game ball of the week. You know who this is going to. This is going to Sammy freaking Darnold. What an incredible game. I mean, like I said, best game of his career. One of the best games passing of the season. I mean, he's an absolute stud. He's playing himself into big-time money. And, quite frankly, the starting position for Minnesota. So, good job, Sammy D. That's the NFL recap. NFL recap has completed. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like and subscribe. Cowboys and Bengals tomorrow night. We're also going to be talking about the college football playoff format and what went down this Saturday. Some good games. Really, some great games. And who's going to win it all. So we'll hit you with a prediction there. And guys, I hope you have a great Monday. I got some shit to iron out tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes. Outside of that, guys, stay safe. God bless and peace out.